Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So yesterday class, we saw that if excitation is given in terms of P naught instead of sine omega t, if the harmonic function takes the form cos omega t, what is the response? So we did that. After what did we do? We saw how to apply the concepts of modification factor to get the damping in the system, right? So we basically studied what is called half power bandwidth. Okay. And there is a reason why we are studying these methods, half power bandwidth or logarithmic decrement, because to get the properties that otherwise would not be possible to get theoretically or numerically. Okay, so it's always better to get these properties experimentally. And once you have sufficient amount of data for different type of a structure, and once you have that database, then you can look at your structure that you are designing and you don't even need to perform those kind of tests. You can just say that, well, it is a this many story building with made up of mostly concrete, or whether it is made up of steel, and I'm going to assume this much of damping based on those database that are developed. Okay, so that is the utility, because those values cannot be, and in any case, as we discussed, numerically you can find out anything based on your assumption. But remember, in the end, all structural dynamics problems are basically simplification, right? In the first chapter, we studied that we simplify a structure for it to be usable for dynamic analysis. So that simplification might be accurate sometimes, or it might not be accurate to the extent that we would like it to be. Okay, and if our analysis is critical, okay, so if it is dealing with some critical system, and depending upon how important it is to find out each and every parameter, we perform experimental tests to actually get those parameters, which are basically the natural frequency or the time period of the system and the damping in the system. Okay, and we said that for half power bandwidth, we are going to utilize the concepts that we have already discussed. We are going to plot the response modification factor on the y-axis, and on the x-axis it would be omega by omega n. Okay, and we are going to draw a horizontal line, which is, if this is my r max, okay, I am going to draw this horizontal line at r max by 2 root 2. Okay, this is going to cut this curve. So this curve is basically determined experimentally, and we also discussed how to determine that. We said that there is a shaker that is usually available, or there are machines that apply harmonic load. Okay, so it can apply harmonic load with certain frequency. You apply to the structure. Okay, and then for this frequency, which is omega, you find out what is the peak displacement u naught. Okay, and you also know that when this frequency is very, very large, so is it applying very slowly? Okay, the peak displacement that you would get would be close to u static, right? So we basically saw these, and then we tried to find out, given this maximum response and this peak displacement, I'm going to find out one point, okay, which corresponds to, let us say, RD. Okay, and while this is going to remain same, because this is like a statically applied force. Okay, so in this case, the frequency is very, very small, applied frequency, almost like equal to 0. So it is in here where it is around 1. Okay, but this I'm going to change, and as I change it, I keep generating new points for the peak response. Okay, and then I plot this curve. Okay, so I get this experimentally. After I got that, I see what is my RD max. I draw a horizontal line at RD max by 2. I will get two values of frequencies where this horizontal line cuts this curve. Okay, now with that, what I can do, I can use the half power bandwidth method, and we derive the expression for that, so that my damping becomes omega b minus omega a times 2 times natural frequency. And for most of the cases, if the values I'm considering are close to the peak, it is usually symmetric. So omega n can also be approximated as omega a plus omega b by 2. So this can in turn be written as omega, sorry, this is negative sign here, omega b plus omega a. Okay. So based on just the experimental data that I've obtained, I can directly get the damping here. Okay. So this is one method to determine damping using forced harmonic motion. And this is different from what we had studied from the first chapter, which was not the first chapter, the second chapter, which was damped free vibration, where we use logarithmic decrement method. Okay. So after you understand this, you would notice I'm not saying here whether it is RD or RA or RV. You know why? You can again use the same expression and you would see that while this expression is valid for RD, so we derived the expression for RD. If we use RA as well, okay, I would again get the same expression. Okay, so let us say, because what you will find in laboratory, it is very easy to measure acceleration because we have accelerometer for that. I don't know if you have heard about accelerometer or not. Accelerometer is like kind of a small device kind of a thing, okay, which has a spring mass system inbuilt in them. So whenever you attach this accelerometer to any structure, okay, let us say you attach it to any structure, it will measure the acceleration of this. And we will actually understand, like, we will discuss the concept behind this accelerometer. So it is usually much easier to get acceleration than it is to deformation. Okay, because deformation is a little bit tricky. You have to have some kind of displacement measurement device. Well, you can use like something called string potentiometer, in which you measure the displacement through the extension of the string. However, acceleration is much easier to get. Okay, so if you get the acceleration, you plot the acceleration versus frequency plot as well, and that would give you the same result. Okay, so this would be valid for RD, RA or RV, all three, whatever you obtain. Okay, all right. Now, we said that you can go ahead and apply this force on a structural model in a laboratory. Let us say it's a model of a column, or it's like, one story frame. And you can choose an actuator. Okay, actuator is something through which you apply the load. Okay, it is called an actuator. So in experiments, you can use this actuator to apply the load. Now the problem that happens, it is all well and good when you are trying to find out the properties in a laboratory. Okay. However, if you have to obtain this or generate this harmonic force in an outside environment or very large structure, then this actuator does not work. Why does it not work? Well, actuator usually does not have that much of capacity to generate force, because to generate large force, actuator requires lot of basically hydraulic power, which may not be available always available in a laboratory. So for actual structure to generate harmonic load, what did we study? We said that a vibration, okay, so a vibration generator is used, and we discussed the concept of a vibration generator. Vibration generator basically works on the principle of unbalanced rotating loads. Okay, so we said that I'm going to put a load here, okay, which is rotating at angular velocity omega, and then there are counteracting load, which is again, okay, in the opposite direction omega. All right, so at any time t, this theta is actually omega t and this theta is omega t. So we saw that horizontal forces are generated because of the centripetal forces, and the vertical forces are also generated. However, the horizontal forces get cancelled off, but the vertical forces gets add up. Okay, and the net vertical force that was generated because of these two rotating mass, we estimated that as centripetal force, the vertical component of centripetal force due to these two masses. Okay, and if I say, let us say this is mass m by 2, this is mass m by 2. I'm just saying, like, using m by 2, you can use m if you like, it doesn't matter in terms of the overall scheme of things. Okay, so I can write this as m by 2. Okay, so centripetal force due to rotating mass of m is basically m omega square r. So here it is m by 2. So m omega square and whatever the radius of this one. Okay. Let us say the radius is capital R, because last time we got, like, mixed up this R and the R that I had used for omega by omega n. Okay. So let me say this is capital R, and then the vertical component, which is sine omega t. Okay. And similarly for the other mass also, it would be same. Sine omega t. So the net vertical force is m omega square r sine omega t. Now if you look at it, this is of the form p naught sine omega t. Okay, so this can be used to generate basically harmonic vibration. So what happens, you have a rotating device like this, which is, and then you would ask, like, how is this actually rotated? Well, the principle is simple. You can use a motor and you provide electric current like you do to a fan or any kind of rotating machinery. Okay, so you provide current. Okay, and these two masses will start rotating in the opposite direction, and because of the unbalanced mass, whatever structure you take, so you can take it to a building, okay, and you can attach to any column or wall, or you can take it to a dam, okay, and you can attach it to the dam, okay, or you can take it to any other kind of structure, and these things are not fictitious. Okay, so in reality, these kind of vibration generators have been used to determine the property of the structures, okay, the modal properties. And one of the situation where this would usually happen, let us say, and we discussed that you have an old structure for which you are numerically not able to determine the properties accurately. Okay, so to get the actual property, okay, you are going to do the vibration generator test to apply the harmonic motion. The function of vibration generator is to apply the harmonic motion, okay, which could not be done in the laboratory using conventional methods. Okay, so once I have that harmonic force P naught sine omega t, one thing that you need to know here, P naught is now not constant, it is a function of applied frequency. Okay, remember when you had this function, okay, you could increase the frequency without increasing the amplitude P naught here. So you can increase the excitation frequency and the P naught was constant. However, because P naught here is a function of excitation frequency, as you want to apply higher and higher frequency, your amplitude would also increase, right? So I cannot simply say that if I apply this and then I apply second load, which is of higher frequency, what will happen? My load would also increase. Okay, so the peak would also increase if I increase the frequency. Okay, and that you need to be careful. Now, in this case, I mean, one more problem that I have. Okay, what did we say about obtaining, or let me going into that discussion, let me first get the peak dynamic displacement. What is the expression for peak dynamic displacement? It is RD times the peak static displacement. Okay, so RD P naught by K, and remember this is just an applied force. Okay, when we attach it to a structure of mass m and stiffness K, so that the frequency, natural frequency is omega n. I want to find out the peak response of this single degree of freedom system. Okay, and that is what I'm trying to do here. So it would be RD times P naught. P naught I can write as m omega square r divided by K. Okay, now I can bring this m in the denominator so that it becomes K by m, so that I can write it this as RD r times omega by omega n. Remember, this is my radius. Okay, and let me take this here. Okay, one more thing. Remember, this K omega n is actually not a small k. This K here, the capital M in the denominator. Okay, so to do that, I will need here M and divided by M. Okay, so that I can write it as this. Okay, so I will have this factor here. Okay, so now this is the term that is going to decide how much of what would be the peak dynamic displacement, not simply RD. And this term depends on this factor. If you can look at it, this resembles the expression for R of A for a single degree of freedom system. So if you have an amplitude that is dependent on the excitation frequency, the expression that you get for U naught is actually this. Okay, and similarly, you can do the same thing for the acceleration as well, right? So remember the peak dynamic acceleration was P naught by M times R of A. And what is P naught here? M omega square R, okay, divided by M here. Now this is capital M here. So I also warned you about the confusion between capital M and small m, because I said that this is the force that is being applied. Okay, this is P naught. Okay, and this is omega t. This is being applied to m k omega n. So all the properties for the response would be of these, and the excitation would be these. Okay, so I can write this as this times Ra. Okay, and this becomes my expression for Ra. Okay, and I mean, you can draw a plot of this. Remember, the plot for Ra was something like this. It starts from 0 and then converges to 1. However, when you use this expression here, you see that now there is a frequency term that is multiplied with this one. So if you try to plot this, okay, for an amplitude dependent force, what you will see, it will starts again at 0. However, as the value increases, it doesn't go to 0, it goes to infinity. Okay, because this term, as you increase omega by omega n to infinity, this term actually increases to infinity. It does not converge to 1 as we had seen that for R of A. Okay, so this is the way we typically apply harmonic force to an existing structure. Okay, now there's an issue with this. Remember, I said that my amplitude for vibration generator, which was m omega square R times sine omega t, it depends on the frequency that you are applying. Okay, so the excitation frequency. Now, if I have to apply or if I have to find out the static value of the response, I cannot go ahead and push a structure, right? If I go ahead, I cannot take an actuator, push a structure to find out the static response UST naught. Okay, I cannot go ahead and push a dam to do that. Okay, so what we typically used to do till the last step, we knew that my omega by omega n, right? If it is much smaller than 1, then my RD was equal to 1, correct? So I could approximate whatever the dynamic displacement, peak dynamic displacement you used to get was the peak static displacement. Okay, so all you needed to do is apply this frequency very low. Okay, or time period very high. So if you apply something at very low frequency, not high frequency, very low, very slowly, okay, then whatever the displacement you get is actually UST naught. The problem with that is in the vibration generator, it's very difficult to apply very low frequency. Okay, so if you try to apply very low frequency, it is very too difficult to apply that. Why? Because if the frequency is very small, your amplitude would be, so if the frequency is very small, your amplitude of the load would be very small. Okay, and it would become almost impossible to measure the response U static naught, okay, correspond to this small frequency, because it would not produce any kind of even small deformation in the structure. Okay, so that is the limitation of a vibration generator, that you cannot apply very small frequency load because the amplitude is very, very small. Okay, so finding out UST naught becomes very difficult. Okay, so that you need to keep in mind. We will see that how to overcome that issue. Okay, so now remember, let us determine using the harmonic test the omega n and damping again. So we did that using half power bandwidth method. Now I'm saying how can I can utilize the vibration generator to get these properties. Okay, I'm again going to use the same method. Okay, but in this case, remember, do you remember the expression for RD or RV or RA? The maximum value of this, okay, at resonance was what? It was 1 by 2 zeta for zeta very small. Okay, although it was like 1 by 2 zeta 1 minus zeta square, and then 1 by 2 zeta, and then again 1 by 2 zeta 1 minus zeta square. However, when zeta is very, very small, all these three can be approximated as 1 by 2 zeta. So I'm saying all three actually equal to 1 by 2 zeta. Okay, so I'm saying that my RD, which is this much, is equal to 1 by 2 zeta. So if I use this expression, I can directly get damping as the static displacement. Okay, so this is at resonance. Okay, which means I'm applying frequency, which is excitation frequency, which is omega equal to omega n. Again, this is only for small value of damping. Okay, so this one, dynamic displacement at omega by omega n. Okay, this I need to say that this is at resonance. So I have this expression. Now this, okay, U static, I need to find out what is the U static naught in the numerator, and I need to find out what is the dynamic displacement at omega by omega n. Okay, the problem here with that is, okay, how do I find out omega by omega equal to omega n, or how do I find the static displacement? Because I already discussed what are the limitations of vibration generator. Okay, so let us see what do we do in reality. Okay, so in reality, when we apply the force, okay, so let us say my force is, or the peak, or let me write down the time variation of this force. Okay, when I apply this force P naught sine omega t, which is nothing but m omega square r sine omega t. Okay, I can apply this force. This is amplitude dependent. Okay, I derived the expression. Okay, let us say this is the response that I'm plotting. I derived the expression for peak static displacement, right? What was it? Okay, let us just go back here and see what was the expression for this. So the expression for peak static displacement was this much. Okay, so let us write down that expression. U naught is m, okay, r by capital M times omega by omega n square times RD. Okay, this was my peak static displacement. Now I'm plotting this, okay, on the horizontal axis omega by omega n. So I can do this and I can get this from experiment. Okay, now the problem here is that I need to find this. Okay, remember, if you remember carefully, when I was applying the load, okay, I want to plot what is the value of RD, or I want to plot what is the value of RA, okay, or RV. However, what I'm getting is a function of omega by omega n square times RD. So during the experiment, what do? We get the displacement, peak displacement, and we divide by the frequency at which the peak displacement is obtained. So I divided by P U naught by omega square. So that now the expression that you will get would be RD. Remember, this is constant. Okay, so you would get this response, okay, for a constant amplitude force. This is, let us say, RD. Similarly, you can have the expression for, let us say, okay, you can have expression for RA as well. Okay, if you consider the acceleration, so this one was, let us again go back what we derived here. Okay, so we derived this expression here. Okay, so let us plot that again. M omega square R divided by M times RA. So if you need to plot RA, you can again employ the same thing, because remember, the half power bandwidth method was developed for RD, RA or RV. Okay, it was not developed for RD times this, although you can say that this is the same expression for RA, but remember, I want RA is nothing but plot of the maximum acceleration versus omega by omega n. Okay, RD is plot of maximum displacement versus omega by omega n, and all of these were for constant magnitude excitation. Okay, so in this case, to resemble that, I am going to obtain experimentally the value of peak displacement or peak acceleration and then divide by the frequency at which it was obtained, so that I would get the response corresponding to peak amplitude force, and then I can develop this. Okay, once I have that for either for RD or I have for, it will start from 0, RA, and this will go to 0 here. Okay, all right, then I can employ the whatever the method that we have used, basically the half power bandwidth method, to again get the damping here. Okay, so these are the methods that are typically used in the laboratory to get the typical properties of a system, okay, subject to harmonic excitation. So using harmonic excitation, we can obtain these properties. Okay, now till last year we used to do experiments, okay, to actually we used to actually shake a very small building model, and we used to do experiments to actually get the values of damping and get the values of natural frequency. However, this year that is not possible. Okay, although I'm trying to get some videos of the experiment so that I can show you, but the lab is not open right now. Okay, because of this situation, so I cannot show you. But after students used to finish this experiment, they used to understand the complete concept of experimentation, okay, to determine the natural properties of the structure. Okay, anybody has any confusion, any doubt up to this point?
Sir, that second expression of you double dots not was not understanding.
This one,
Yes, sir.
remember, when I bring this to this side, then I would need to divide it by m. Basically, I need to bring this. So this is the expression after I brought the omega square by n. This I obtained from here, right? Remember, this I obtained from here. If you remember carefully, okay, we had, when we were discussing about the peak displacement, displacement modification factor, velocity modification factor, and acceleration modification factor, did we not derive these expressions? This one was RT times sine omega t minus phi. Okay, the velocity was P naught divided by Km times RV sine, no, cos, okay, cos omega t minus phi. Okay, and the acceleration was P naught by M times minus RA sine omega t minus phi. Okay, so this one was basically u dot t, if I take this expression, equal to minus RA times P naught by M. times sine omega t minus phi. So this is the expression for the time variation of acceleration, okay, for which the magnitude, the maximum value is actually what? This is the maximum value, right? It is Ra P naught by m. Okay. So this is basically what I had used. And remember that for a vibration generation, P naught is m omega square r. So you can just substitute it there. Okay. This would be capital M here for this case because it is attached to a structure of mass m. Okay. So let me just write it here. And this times Ra. So basically I use the same expression there. Is that clear? I mean, not using any new concept here. Okay.
Yes, sir, not clear.
Anybody else? Speak up. If you don't understand anything during the class, you need to speak up. There is no other way to clarify your doubts, especially in this remote mode. Okay. So make sure if you don't understand anything, don't be shy. Okay. All questions you would find actually help others to understand where a typical doubt might come from. Okay. If you have a doubt, then you have reason to. It doesn't matter what kind of doubt you have. If you have not understood anything, that's a genuine issue and you need to clarify that. Do not move forward without clarifying all your doubts. Anyone else has any doubt up to this point, what we have studied till now? Okay, all right. Now, remember, so these are the methods that we have discussed to find out the experimental values of frequency and damping. Okay, the natural frequency of damping. Okay, now let us move on to the next topic, which is basically, remember till now we have basically discussed response modification factor, which are okay. So three type of response modification factor we have discussed: displacement, velocity, and acceleration. And I said that we discuss these three types because depending upon what kind of system this actually represent, okay, and what kind of system you are designing, either displacement might be important, or velocity might be important, or acceleration might be important, and we provided some example of it. Okay, for example, if you have a structure and if you consider windows in a structure or something, glass windows, that is basically vulnerable to the displacement, right? However, if you consider, let us say, a vehicle system in which you are designing the shock absorption system, then it is sensitive to the velocity because damper is actually sensitive to the velocity. And acceleration was useful for the cases where you have support systems. Okay, so if a machine is, let us say, supported to a wall or a ground or a floor, then those equipments are sensitive to the acceleration. So all these three types of response values were actually relevant. So that's why we obtain this response modification factor. Okay. But there is one more thing, okay, that we need to find out. For all these cases, let us say, whether it is displacement, velocity, or acceleration, okay, let us say my system is connected to a support here. Okay, so this is my system. And this is my representation of the system, a single degree of freedom representation. Okay. So an important parameter to find out in this kind of system is how much of the force. So if I apply a force, let us say P equal to P naught sine omega t. Okay. If I apply this force and if this system is connected to some kind of support or ground, how much the force this system would be applied to the support. And where does it become important? For example, let us say if you have a machinery that is attached to a wall, and if you start applying force, let us say it's a vibration force, it is the machinery is rotating. Okay, and if this is the representation of the machinery, then you need to find out what is the total force that is transferred to the wall. Now you might ask, why is that important? Well, you need to design your support appropriately so that it does not fail. Okay, so you need to find out how much the total force that is transferred to the system, and if you had applied this load statically or if you applied this dynamically at a very high frequency, then how much is the amplification or reduction in the force that might happen. Okay, okay. This is the problem statement. Okay, that you have a system that is attached to a support. It is being acted upon by a force, a harmonic force, and you want to find out due to this force and because of these connections that you have here, how much of the force is being transferred to the support. So I've drawn the horizontal representation. It could be a vertical representation as well. Okay, as we say that both of these correspond to the same thing. Okay. So this is mass. I want to find out what is the support. So if you consider the free body diagram of either of these systems, can I say the total force transmitted to the support at any time t? So let me write it this as at any time t. It is the force in the spring plus the force in the damper. Because if you cut it, then okay, if you cut it here, these are the two forces that are acted upon. Okay. All right. So the total force is this much. So let me write this as KUT plus CUT. Okay. So this is the force that is being transferred as a function of time t. Okay. So let me substitute the expression for UT. Okay. What did we obtain UT as? Remember the expression for UT was U0 times omega t minus phi if it is being acted by this force here. Okay, so I'm going to substitute that here. And then I would have C times U dot T. So you need to differentiate it once. So this becomes C omega U naught and it would become cos omega t minus phi. All right. So Ft becomes, and remember my U naught is what? U naught is UST naught times RD, which is P naught by K times RD. So if I substitute the value of U naught here, okay, what I can say, let us P naught by K times RD. I am taking K outside as well. So I would be left with here. So I'll take K U naught outside. Okay. Sine omega t minus phi plus C omega by K cos omega t minus phi. Okay, this K will cancel off. You will get Ft as P naught times RD times this expression. Now, we already know that if you have an expression of form A cos theta plus B sin theta, the maximum value of this one is A square plus B square, right? And of course, you'll have some cos theta plus alpha term or whatever, but the maximum value of this is 1. So the maximum value of this trigonometric expression is actually A square plus B square. So it would have some variation. Let us say 1 plus C omega by K square times some sine omega t minus phi plus or minus alpha, whatever, I don't care actually. Okay, because I'm more interested in finding out the peak value of this force, which would be represented by the coefficient of sine. Okay, so this would be C omega by K. Now, let us see what is C omega by K. If you remember, my damping ratio was C by C critical, which I can write as C by 2 m omega n, which I can also write as a C by 2 omega n, and m I can write is as K by omega n square. Okay, so this is C omega n by 2 K. Okay, so from here I can write C omega by K is 2 zeta by omega n. and I can substitute it back in this expression for the maximum value of the force. Okay, P naught RD times 1 plus 2 zeta omega by omega n square. Okay, so if I write this expression as peak value of force transferred to the support divided by the peak value of the applied force, which is P naught, is equal to RAD times 1 plus 2 zeta omega by omega n. This is called transmissibility ratio. So another term apart from your response modification factor, okay, this is called transmissibility, or in short, the transmissibility, also represented as TR. So transmissibility is where if you apply a harmonic force P naught sine omega t to any mass damper system or any single degree of freedom system, the force, the peak value of force that is transferred to the support, if you take that, okay, ratio with respect to the applied force, okay, the ratio is actually transmissibility. So you see the P naught was actually peak value of the applied harmonic force, and Ft naught is actually the maximum value of the force transferred to the support. All right, and this is comes out to be equal to another ratio, which is RD times this factor, and it is called transmissibility ratio. Okay, so I will write the expression for transmissibility again here. Transmissibility is nothing but, now I have this whole under root 2 zeta omega by omega n square divided by, I'm going to substitute my value of RD here, which is 1 by this under root term, which you have already been studying. All right, so I have additional numerator term here, this. Okay, so this is called transmissibility ratio. Okay, and I mean, you can go ahead and plot this like we did for the displacement, okay, velocity and acceleration modification factor. I can plot my transmissibility ratio as well. Okay, so what I want you to do here at this point, okay, you already know how to do that. Let us say I have this where I'm plotting transmissibility ratio, okay, and let us say again this is 1, 2, 3 and so on. This is 0, 1, 2, 3 frequency ratio. Okay, just have a look at it. Okay, how would this function look like? So what will happen when omega by omega n is equal to 0? When omega by omega n is much greater than 1. So in this side, so what happens here, what happens here, and what happens here? Can you do that? You think it in this term, and then can you plot this function for different values omega by omega n and then join them, see what do you get? This will give you some idea of the transmissibility ratio. How does it vary with the frequency ratio? So how the force transferred to the support varies with the applied frequency. Okay, take 2 minutes and try to draw this.
Hello, sir. This is Omkar. I have a doubt.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, can you shift 4-5 steps above? Here we got the value of C omega by K as 2 zeta by omega n, and we substituted here as 2 zeta by omega n into omega.
This should be C by K. Okay.
Okay,
Now
sir.
it is fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Let us see what do I get. In this expression, when omega by omega n is equal to 0, I will see that it starts from 1, right? So transmissibility ratio is also 1, like the deformation modification factor RD. So it starts with 1. And again, when it goes omega by omega n is equal to actually 1, what does this value converge to? It values the transmissibility ratio at omega by omega n is what? It is 1 plus 2 zeta divided 2 zeta square, sorry, 2 zeta square divided by this becomes 0, and then this becomes 2 zeta here. Okay, again square. All right. So I get this term here 1 plus, okay, I will have 1 plus 2 zeta square. Okay, and if my damping is 0 in this case, okay, I again see that, okay, as you decrease the value of damping, this term starts to dominate and TR starts to become a very large value. Okay, so as you have 0 damping on an undamped system, you will see that this force becomes very, very large because you have damping term in the denominator. So again, it becomes maximum at the value of omega by omega n equal to 1. And then for a very large value of omega by omega n, okay, what do we get? When you have omega by omega n is very much greater than, let us say it's tending infinity. In the numerator you have term which is omega by omega n square, but in the denominator we have omega by omega n to the power 4. So it will converge to a value of 0 for very large value of omega by omega n, because your power of the variable in the denominator is higher than the power in the numerator. Okay, so it goes to, let me draw it again here. Something like this. Okay, so this behavior is somewhat familiar. Okay, but remember I have drawn it for a single value of damping. Okay, let us say zeta. Okay, there is an interesting observation here. Okay, so what I did, I plotted this for different values of damping. Okay, so let me copy this figure here that I have generated.